My wife may never walk again. I want to share a deeply personal story about my wife and the harrowing journey we've been on together. It all began on September 23, 2025, when my pregnant wife, who works in the medical field, called me with alarming news. She had hurt herself at work, and her arms were starting to hurt and go numb. Initially, she spoke with her doctor, who suggested it was probably nothing serious. However, as the hours passed, her condition worsened. When I arrived to pick her up, I found her in tears, unable to move her arms or feel her fingers. It was a heart-wrenching sight. I knew we needed to go to the emergency room immediately. By the time we got there, she had lost feeling in her legs, which were spasming uncontrollably every few seconds. The medical team quickly took action, lifting her onto a stretcher and bringing her inside, after a series of tests, including ultrasounds and MRIs. The doctors confirmed that our baby was fine, with a strong heartbeat, but the news about my wife was far from reassuring. Despite being in the hospital for over 36 hours, the doctors were baffled. They could not determine the cause of her paralysis. She could move her arms up to her wrists, but her fingers were completely unresponsive. The neurologist expressed uncertainty, stating that while she didn't believe this would be permanent, she couldn't guarantee anything. I was terrified. The thought that my wife might never walk again or regain full use of her limbs was overwhelming. I tried to remain strong for her, but when she slept, I often found myself in tears, grappling with the fear of losing her independence. One night, I broke down while talking to a stranger in the hospital, and he offered me a comforting hug that I desperately needed. As we navigated this uncertain terrain, we discussed potential diagnoses with the neurologist. Guillain-Barré syndrome was ruled out due to the rapid onset of her symptoms. I suggested transverse myelitis, but that was dismissed as well. The doctors decided to conduct a lumbar MRI and a lumbar puncture to rule out conditions like meningitis. In the days that followed, we learned more about her condition. She had experienced a pop in her shoulder while with a patient, which marked the beginning of her decline. Despite testing for various conditions, including multiple sclerosis, nothing definitive emerged. Fast forward to October 19, 2025, nearly a month later, and we received a diagnosis of functional neurological disorder. The doctors recommended physical therapy as the best course of action. However, we faced another hurdle. The inpatient rehab facility denied us, as did several others in neighboring states. Our only option was skilled nursing, which was not covered by our insurance and would have cost us an exorbitant amount. Feeling frustrated and helpless, I reached out to friends I had made over the years in the physical therapy community. One of my neighbors worked at a different facility and offered to help. I also contacted a friend who was a physical therapist and had connections at a local rehab facility. Through these connections, we hoped to find a way to get my wife the help she needed. It was a challenging time filled with uncertainty, but I was determined to advocate for her and explore every possible avenue for her recovery. As we continue this journey, I remain hopeful that with the right support and treatment, my wife will regain her strength and mobility. Thank you for listening to our story, and if you're the praying type, we would appreciate any positive thoughts sent our way. Life can change in an instant, and for my wife and me, that moment came unexpectedly. It all started when my pregnant wife hurt herself at work, which wasn't even work-related. We rushed to the hospital, but what followed was a whirlwind of confusion and misdiagnosis. Initially, doctors diagnosed her with functional neurological disorder, or FND, which left her with no feeling from the chest down. It was a terrifying time, filled with uncertainty and fear. After spending 11 long days in the hospital, we received a call that would change everything. A friend of mine and his wife, who is a top doctor at a specialized facility, had pulled some strings to get us transferred to the Inpatient Rehabilitation Facility, or IPRF. It turned out that my wife's friend was instrumental in making this happen. We were finally on our way to receiving the care she desperately needed. Upon our arrival at the IPRF, we met a new neurologist who ordered another MRI. The results were shocking. Instead of FND, my wife had suffered a spinal cord stroke. This diagnosis was rare and serious, but it also meant we were now on the right path to recovery. With the correct diagnosis, we were transferred to a specialized spinal rehabilitation facility after 13 days in the hospital. As we settled into this new place, we learned that my wife would need to stay for the next 2 to 3 months. The doctors were hopeful, and so were we. They explained that while recovery could take time, the fact that she was experiencing spasms in her legs was a positive sign. It indicated that there was still some activity in her muscles, which gave us a glimmer of hope. Fast forward to nearly a month later, and my wife had been in rehab for about 5 weeks. The facility was brand new, equipped with state-of-the-art technology, and the therapists were knowledgeable and supportive. However, we did face some challenges with the nursing staff, leading us to file a few complaints. It was frustrating, but we remained focused on my wife's recovery. During her time at the facility, her progress was remarkable. Initially, she scored a 0 on a pinprick test for feeling in her legs, but just 2 weeks later, she scored a 2. This improvement meant that her muscles were beginning to activate. With the approval from the obstetrician group, her physical therapy became more aggressive. She started to perform sit-to-stand exercises and was able to stand, even if only for a few seconds with assistance. One of the most exciting moments came when she noticed she could wiggle her toes. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental in our journey. Additionally, when she first arrived, she struggled to pick up small cubes, but just recently, she was able to transfer them from one side of the box to the other, completing 40 repetitions in just 60 seconds. My wife was also able to sit up on her own, lifting her head and looking up instead of keeping it pressed down to her chest. While we still faced challenges, particularly with bladder and bowel control, we remained optimistic. The medical team assured us that these would likely be the last functions to return. As we continue this journey, I am filled with gratitude for the support we've received from friends and family. The road ahead may be long, but every small victory brings us closer to the day when my wife can walk again. We are hopeful and determined, ready to face whatever comes next, together. Life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges our way, and for my wife and me, this past year has been nothing short of a roller coaster. As we prepared to welcome our little one into the world, we found ourselves facing a situation that would test our strength and resilience. It all started during the Thanksgiving holiday, when my wife, who was pregnant at the time, faced a serious health crisis. The doctors informed us that she would need to stay in a rehabilitation facility longer than we had anticipated. Initially, we thought she could come home for the holiday, but after discussing it with the medical team, we agreed that it was best for her to remain in care. We pushed for her to stay longer, and thankfully, they agreed to extend her discharge date into December. While navigating this difficult time, we were also focused on our baby. The doctors assured us that the little one was growing well, which brought us some comfort amidst the uncertainty. However, given the high-risk nature of my wife's pregnancy, they recommended that we return to the hospital for the delivery. They also mentioned that they expected her to have a natural childbirth, which added another layer of complexity to our situation. Despite the challenges, there were glimmers of hope. My wife began to show signs of improvement in her rehabilitation. She was able to move her legs and even wiggle her toes, which was a significant milestone. The therapists at the facility were incredible, pushing her to regain her strength and mobility. In fact, she could pick up small cubes, something she struggled with before, and she managed to do it several times in just a minute. As we approached December, I couldn't help but feel a mix of anxiety and hope. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but we were determined to face it together. I promised myself that I would keep everyone updated on our progress, sharing both the struggles and the victories along the way. For now, we're focusing on the positives. My wife's recovery is progressing, our baby is thriving, and we are holding on to the hope that brighter days are ahead. I'll be sure to share more updates as we navigate this journey, and I appreciate all the support we've received during this challenging time.